What is going on, guys? Kenny here from 619 Guitars and Gear, and I want to welcome you to part 4 of the NK Headless mod project. Well, last week's episode, we had finally revealed the theme, which was a Star Wars Dark Side theme. Like I said, red and black. Every time I see it, that's what I think of. And yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. And in this video, we are going to finally get some red on this thing. I'm going to walk you through the steps of what I did and what I'm going to do, and we'll talk about how I think it's going to turn out and some other things that we're going to do besides the red. I would like to add something besides just red to make it more fit the Star Wars theme. So you don't look at me and say, oh, it's just black and red. What does that have to do with Star Wars? So I want to try to figure out something that we can add to it to make it a little more fitting than just black and red. So anyway, here I am putting a coat of satin poly down on the body. You can see up in the corner, I had tested filling in some of the grain with some red paint, and that's my idea. Basically, I was gonna wipe on some red paint, hope it fills in the grain, and then wipe it off, and then leaving the red paint in the grain, and then the black should still be there, obviously. And I thought that putting poly down first will just make it an easier process. The red should wipe off way easier and not be able to like soak into the black paint or anything, or any of the little pores in the black paint. It just kind of added a layer of protection, and it wiped off really clean and really quickly. We did have to, clean it up a little bit with some light alcohol, but after doing that, it looked really, really good. The red stayed right in the wood grain, and then the black was still nice and black. It didn't have like a red hue to it or anything. And that's what I was afraid of. When I thought about this whole idea, I was kind of contemplating if it was even going to work. So I was pretty pumped on the fact that it did work, and came out way better than I thought. And, once I was done just wiping it down lightly with alcohol, it did obviously fade the clear coat a little bit, but we're going to put a coat on it afterwards, and you can see here how good it looked. The black is still nice and true black, and the red looks really good. It pops out perfectly. And obviously there's some Jacksons that have this whole idea, and even NK this year for 2021 has a few models that's pretty much this concept. Obviously the grain on this ash body is a little more fine than some of the grain on some of the other ash bodies. It's a little more just coarse grain. This is a little bit more finer. So now basically we're just doing the same step, putting a clear poly on the rest of the body. I wasn't going to do this whole concept on the front. I was going to leave the front black and then just do like a red burst around the edges. But I figured, you know what, it's kind of plain. I really liked the way that the back looked, and I figured, why not do it to the whole body, and then it will just add flair to the whole thing, and then we can go back and do the red burst around the whole body. I think it'll look really cool. I saw a Aristides actually that had that whole theme. It didn't have the wood grain thing, being that obviously they're not made out of wood, but it just was black with a light, small, thin red burst around it. Oh, and it looked really, really good. So it's kind of what gave me the whole idea, this whole black and red thing. And then obviously there's a bunch of Jacksons out there that have like the black with the wood grain filled in, like neon green or whatever. And obviously I wanted this to be a black and red theme for the whole Star Wars thing. And yeah, so that's why we went with red. So here I am putting more red on the front with a Q-tip. Ended up switching to just putting it on with a rag or a piece of paper towel. It was just a little bit easier. And honestly, it went a little faster and actually filled in the grain a little bit better. On the front, the grain wasn't as deep as it was on the sides and the back for some reason. Most likely because I sandblasted the sides and the back like 2 or 3 times. And being that I was originally planning on not taking the veneer off, I think the front only got sandblasted like once or twice. So it was probably just a little bit deeper on the sides and the back than it was on the front. But once, I dabbed it in there pretty good and then lightly wiped it off, like you can see how much red paint is smushed around now, but then after wiping it off and then completely wiping it down in alcohol, it's 100 times better. And you really couldn't even tell, that I was just smearing red paint all over the thing. So I was a little worried about how it was going to turn out. And I was worried that it was going to make the black have like a red hue to it, but it didn't at all. And it looked really, really good. And I think the putting down the poly really helped in that aspect. I think it just made a nice protection layer between the black and the red. And it made it just so the red was able to be wiped off really easily. And like I said, with the alcohol, I used like a 50% alcohol. It wasn't a full 100%. So it was just a light alcohol. It wasn't full powered. So I think that helped too, just so we didn't, wipe off the poly or anything. It is a water-based poly that I'm using. And yeah, once I got done wiping it off, it looked really good. And then I just wanted to put another thin layer of the satin poly on it just to protect it, protect it from, handling the guitar through the rest of the build. And it kind of just brightened everything up a little bit. Like I said, using the alcohol kind of doled out everything. And it didn't really make it look like white or anything. It just kind of give it a dull look. So putting the clear on the black afterwards just kind of made everything pop out again, and just give me a nice little layer of protection and for handling it and everything. So we pretty much just brushed a thin layer around the whole rest of the body. And now we're going to move on to the neck. I went out to Harbor Freight and bought a cheap airbrush kit. I haven't done any airbrushing in a long time. I used to do it all the time, and I didn't have an airbrush anymore, so I figured why not go buy one. And of course, I didn't read the box and it didn't come with a hose, so I had to go all the way back and buy a hose. And I already have like a little airbrush compressor, and yeah, so we are pretty much halfway there with the whole airbrush setup. And basically I taped off the head. I'm not going to call it a headstock. I don't know. What would you call it? Like a head? I don't even know. Anyway, we taped it off, and I sprayed some black down first. I just pretty much took some black spray paint and red spray paint and sprayed it into the caps of the cans, and then dumped it into the little bottle for the airbrush. I didn't have like an airbrush specific paint. You can see it does look a little rough just because we sprayed it directly onto the wood. So it is a little rough, but once we seal it with clear and everything and sand it and make it look smooth, it will look perfect. So I'm not really worried about it. Once it's finished, it will be fine. So I basically did a little red outline with the airbrush, and I wanted to kind of do a little burst effect around the head too, because it, will match the body once I do it on the body. And it honestly came out really good. I was kind of nervous to do it just because I haven't airbrushed in so long. So I practiced on like some scrap wood, and it came out really good. I was surprised. And I mean, there's a little bit of overspray in the middle, but once you clear it, a lot of it's just dry dust. So I let it dry a little bit and then wiped it down, and then put, you'll see, I don't know if I show it in this video, but I put a little bit of clear on once it's done. It would probably be the next video I do that. And yeah, it turned out amazing. It looks really, really cool. It's going to match the body perfectly. And yeah, I'm really, really excited with how it came out. I can't wait to do it to the body. And yeah, it's going to be great. You could see how rough it was. But like I said, once we get some clear on there, it's going to look perfect. And it's not even going to be a big deal. But thanks for watching, guys. And we will see you in the next episode.